Hey, what's good, people? This is the Option Podcast. This is episode 168. I don't know. That guy over there, he looks like Karl Beckstrand. We're going to find out. The episode starts right now. What's good, Carl?
Hey, Jason.
What's up? Once again, this is the Option Podcast. I am your host with the most. I am Jason DeBeas. I got to give the people what they want. I got to give the people what they want. Sometimes you ask for somebody, and sometimes I got to tell you who you deserve. And this man, Karl Beckstrand, he is going to talk about a whole bunch of things, and we're not even sure where we want to go with that, right?
We can talk about a lot of different things.
Yeah, no doubt. Actually, let's talk about what we were talking about before we got on the air. You are a multiple best-selling book author, and I'd like to. What was the first one? What was the first one you sold?
The very
That
first book that came out was a children's book called Sounds in the House, a mystery.
okay, a mystery. Yeah, and that's in English and Spanish, right?
But
Yeah. And what? No, actually, let's do the censorship thing later. I want to talk about the books. I want to talk about. I have a shape, kind of a weird question, and I need you to allow me to shape it.
all right.
When I studied Shakespeare, I was in theater, in Marymount, Manhattan. They said Shakespeare had to do Titus Andronicus in order to do Hamlet.
Oh,
Titus
wow.
Andronicus was like his blockbuster, the one that was going to sell tickets, the one that was going to generate some revenue, that put him in a position to do some of the good work that he wanted to do. Like George Clooney, right, had to do ER and
Yeah.
that movie with Jennifer Lopez, so he could do Oh Brother Where Art Thou and like Syriana and Good Night and Good Luck. Sorry,
Yeah. Yeah.
good. What was it with Good Luck and Good Night? What was it about the John Dewey thing? I forgot the movie.
Oh, Good
Good
Luck
Night
and
and
Good
Good
Night.
Luck.
Wasn't that about the news reporter?
Yes. That was accused of being a communist or whatever.
Yeah.
It'd be like, oh, I got friends that are communists. We can't be friends, you know. So, I guess my question is, and I'm gonna give you the floor. Was there a particular book that you wrote that put you in a position to do some of the work that you really want to do, or was it raw coincidence that what you wanted to do was the book you wrote?
Wow. Yeah, so when I was getting my undergrad degree, and when I should have been doing homework, I was getting bombarded with story ideas.
Hmm.
And they were mostly kids' books. And it was just weird because I didn't think I was a writer. I wasn't much of a reader. And I just kept getting these ideas that wouldn't let me go till I wrote them down. And the first one that got published happened to be a kid's book. And the publisher, I actually asked the publisher if we could do it English and Spanish. And he said, no, I don't think that'll sell. But he actually passed away the day we went to print. So I had to take over all the marketing and promotion. And so since it was in back in my hands again, I made it bilingual and published it in Spanish. And my Spanish books have been my bestsellers.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
You spent a lot of time in Chile, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lived there for a couple of years.
You ever been to Peru?
Just the Lima airport.
Yeah. I was in Peru for like 10 days. I was on an academic trip with Duke University. With my wife's parents went to Duke Law School, so they get invited to all these trips. And it was as far as like a once in a lifetime thing is concerned. Yeah, you got to do it. Very much like Chile. Like there's zero regrets, right? Zero regrets of you spending the time you
Oh,
spent in Chile.
Chile was
Yeah.
marvelous.
And Lima, that's where you land, but and of course Cusco, Puno, Lake Titicaca is like this city with like everyone lives on an island built of straw, and they take a and every day they take a whole bunch of straw to keep the island afloat. It's just weird. It's like these huts on islands, and people on
Yeah.
boats are like selling merchandise, selling food or whatever. It's a little city of its own. And of course Machu Picchu, the main attraction, and which was if you're more academic, you appreciate it more than a kid from Brooklyn. Me, I was more aesthetically pleased by what I saw, and the
You're an
spiritual,
academic.
yeah, and the spiritual aspect. I guess I got two educations. Yeah, so there was a book in particular that I thought you and I wanted to talk about, and I really love the material you sent me. And it's called. It's right. It was right here. I'm sorry. Abundant Paths. Can you give me the complete title?
Abundant paths.
Beyond either or thinking to fulfilling
Yeah.
same-sex relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's that's it.
Right. Is the crux of the book, how much does it have to do with nature versus nurture?
Almost
Because
nothing.
exactly, from what I read, I'm like, this is unique and it's original and it's on its own. You didn't decide to go the path that leads to people saying you need to talk to scientists about this. Talk to me a little bit about the book.
So yeah, actually, this book is the book that my other books enabled me to write, and I didn't know it all the years. I mean, I've been published for 18 years now,
Hmm.
and all the years I was cranking out books, I didn't ever realize that it was to get to this one book that just came out last year.
Hmm.
And actually, a friend persuaded me to write it. I had no intention of writing it because I was pretty content with my life and how things were
Who
going.
wants to do right? Who wants to do that?
Yeah. But yeah, I had learned so many things about relationships in the last 5 years, just revolutionary to me. And my friend agreed, and he says, you got to share this stuff. You can't just keep it to yourself. So it's mostly things that I've learned in my relationship failures, and then ultimately, lately in life, my relationship successes.
All right. Is it about um the phase of understanding sexuality, right? Where we can talk, where we could be talking about same sex. It could definitely be applicable to heterosexual relationships and this and that.
Yeah.
Is it about the phase and the process of getting what you want and then wanting what you get? And maybe if I need to be more specific about that, let's just, I don't want to talk about me, but it's the best way I know how to shape the question. My sister, is a lesbian. She's first female in our family to serve 2 tours in Afghanistan, and when she came
Wow.
out, all she could think about is women. And it turns out we like the same kind of women, so we had conversations about that. But it was one of those things that seemed residual, and I just had to ask the question. I'm like, you do know you're more than just this. You do know you're also
Right.
gay, right? This is a new discovery that you think is shaping your identity as a collective whole, right? And this is a phase. you
Okay.
know, I was just trying to talk her out of winding up with a girl who she likes physically, right? Physical attraction, because that was one of the things in your book.
Yeah.
And then finding out that that person's a train wreck.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to give you the floor, but I want to finish by saying this. We as human beings are already attracted to train wrecks as it is.
Yeah.
We are, I mean, right? You watch Jersey Shore for 6 seasons, right? And it started with the disc jockeys like Howard Stern. 80% of the people were disgusted with what he said, but
Yeah.
90% of those 80% said they're going to watch it again. So,
Yeah.
talk to me in the book if it pertains to process of physical attraction and getting what you want and wanting what you get, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. And in the book, I even say I don't even know whether people are born gay or not. I don't really worry about that.
No.
Um, and you address something important that I come from a Christian background, and a lot of Christians, when I say I'm bisexual, will say, "Oh, you are just like a heretic. You should say I'm a child of God because bisexual, you can't use that, or gay or whatever." And honestly, if someone is liberal or conservative or American or Peruvian, you have to use other words. It doesn't mean that's your main identity, but yeah, there are descriptors that you use so that you can communicate easily. Of course, I'm a Christian. Of course, I'm a child of God. But yeah, being attracted, wanting what you have, and is that what you said?
Yes,
Wanting what
getting what you want and wanting what you get.
getting what you want and wanting what you get. That's really the key to this book, because I thought for many years I thought God didn't want me to associate with men
Right.
at all, and I went through a period where, well, I was compulsive sexually because I was exposed to sexual activity very young.
Right.
And then I also went through a period of kind of being a recluse because I thought that's what God wanted. And he's like, no, that's not what I want. I want you to have healthy relationships with men and women.
Right.
And for years, I also tried to make God fill all my needs. And he said, wrong again. I gave you social needs so that you would meet them with human beings. I'm not going to take those away.
No. And
Yeah.
that's a very, very good point. In your religion and specificness, but at the same time, religion or Orthodox Christianity as a general rule, right? And it's the one thing that escapes people's thought process. God Himself according to whether you're a Mormon, which you are, I grew up Assemblies of God, fire and brimstone, speaking in
Right.
tongues, doing backflips up the aisles,
Yeah.
raised Catholic, and then from that to that, you can imagine
Sure.
like how like crazy the atmosphere was in me. I couldn't stop staring at people. But there was a general rule of God Himself never took away free will.
Right.
God Himself wouldn't even allow the devil to take away free will, right? Everyone says the devil made you do it. No, really. These days, the devil's watching, HBO dramas on show, watching The Wire or Game of Thrones. And the devil's sitting back because free will. We're doing a lot of the stuff on our own. But I think the broader point I was trying to make was, I don't think it's the function of Christianity to take away people's free will.
Right.
Right. Our president, Joe Biden, he's I think he's pro-abortion, right? Pro-choice, but he's also a Catholic.
Catholic. Yeah.
So his Catholicism is not, I mean, to me, that's a true Christian, because he's not taking away the rights to people who do not share your religion. Right. Now we could get into what is a life and all that stuff and this and that, but as a general concept of saying no, my religion says it's wrong, so you can't do it.
That's not a good enough reason.
Is a great, but it's a great win for politics when someone can say, like, look, I mean, I grew up anti-gay. I grew up until I was like 18 years old, until I joined the army too. Shortly during the military, I kind of had this epiphany. I'm like, all right. What are we even doing here? So your book covers, is it all about sex? I like that. And we're going to talk about that. What's good about attraction to your own sex, right? What's good? Is fluidity real? As a guy who's studied the seven major chakras of the spinal cord, like fluidity, that second chakra. I'm not sure if that's where the book was going with this or that, but I'd like you to educate the audience on some of those topics. Let's start with, is it all about sex?
So yeah, I have enjoyed lots of orgasms with people of my own sex, and but when we confuse sexual euphoria with love, we guarantee that we're going to fall out of love, because sexual euphoria by nature is temporary. And most straight guys get that, but a lot of gay men don't. And they go from heartbreak to heartbreak to heartbreak to the grave, because they're looking for this thing that's going to fill them entirely, looking for this partner that's going to be their world, their everything, that's going to know their thoughts, that's going to meet all their needs. And no one person can meet all our needs.
That's very well said.
Sexual euphoria is great, but I actually found late in life that there is a deeper connection you can have with people, regardless of their sex, regardless of your sexual orientation. There are deeper connections than sexual euphoria. And they don't have to be without euphoria, but there are just so many more kinds of relating than the world tells us.
No doubt. See, so actually, I mentioned something called train wrecks, and we'll just call it the train wreck fallacy. Is the foundation of the train wreck fallacy generated from this feeling of euphoria, which we both concede is very, very temporary? Is that why we are attracted to train wrecks, because we are looking for that next rush?
Maybe
right?
Looking for the danger.
We were talking about same-sex relationships, but straight guys, like I remember I was on Wendy Jones' podcast from the Optimist Journal. You got to listen to her. She's the conscience of the United States of America. And I used Bill Clinton as an example, right? With the Monica Lewinsky thing. Yeah. And we made a joke. I was like, Hillary wasn't always ugly, right? Okay. I mean, if you looked at her in the 90s, but if you looked at her in the 90s, she was cute, and then when you found out she was smart, she was hot, because I call those points. You see someone and they're all right, then you see how they carry themselves, and I'm like, okay, she's hot, Well, now she looks like Leona Helmsley meets the Wicked Witch, but I'm like, why put Hillary aside for that? Because there was this euphoria that Bill has had most of his life, that he's used to having, a reputation for having, and though the feeling in general is temporary, it's on to the next one to keep this temporary feeling residual. So I guess my question is the train wreck fallacy generated? Is that is this the euphoria the foundation of that train wreck fallacy?
Maybe. I think everybody's different.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think you and I as men identify with the allure of the dangerous, but not everybody feels that way. Not all men feel that way. Um,
No, you're right.
so, I think just society in general is over focused on sex because we don't see the other kinds of relating anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a loss. It's sad because sex as a band-aid is sad.
It is,
Yeah,
and and you might be putting a band-aid on on something that's a machete slice,
yeah.
you know. So, I got one more question about the book, and then beyond that, everyone they're just gonna have to buy it and read it themselves because we're not. This is the option, not the spoiler alert podcast. All right. So,
Okay.
my my question, and you can choose not to answer this because this might be worth reading the book over. You had to the question: Are competing desires um healthful?
Yeah.
Um, I don't. Me personally, and I need you to educate me on this one. This is why I punt the ball to you because you're
Sure.
the one that's learner. You're the one that's done the research. You're the one that's did the writing. And as much as a kid from Brooklyn thinks he knows about a little bit about everything, I pose this question. I don't. I only see harm and no help in it. That's the way I know how
Okay.
to put that.
Well,
And I'm
I
gonna
spent
give you the floor.
decades. Yeah, I spent decades hating my attraction to men and seeing nothing good about it.
Right.
But if God really knows everything, whether or not he makes people gay, if God really knows everything, and if he has a plan for each of us to come back and live with him forever, then whatever we experience can be used for our success there and for our happiness, not only later, but now, our happiness now.
Mhm.
And so that's what I discovered is that competing desires are everywhere. You want to spend time with your family, but you want to work so you can earn to support your family. You want to stay awake and watch a show, but you also want to sleep. You want that dessert, but you want to stay trim.
Mhm.
And so competing desires in one way can help us know who we are, what we value. But I think in another way, they, they help us grow. And so I'm at a place now where my relationships are so fulfilling. I would not I would not, if someone gave me a pill to be straight, I wouldn't take it right now
No.
because I like who I am and I like my relationships. They're better than they've ever been.
Yeah, you seem happy too. There are some people when they come out that it's like that En Vogue song "Free Your Mind." And man, it's just great. I have a friend of mine that actually was he trans into a woman, right? And then some
Wow.
people they jump into that, right?
Mhm.
And it's like, what the hell did I do? And then there's some people they were miserable until the day they did it, and then you see them a year later and they're like happy as hell. And I'm just like, you know what? Stop hating, dude. You got someone that did something that they thought would bring them happiness, and as coincidence or science or whatever, would have it, it is making them happy. And why can't you just be happy that they're happy? Why
Yeah.
can't, what I'm saying? That's where I'm not a libertarian, but why doesn't everybody just leave everybody else alone? Like
Yeah.
Hank Williams made a song called "This Is a Coalition to Ban Coalitions," and,
Awesome.
and the last line of the song, "Why doesn't everybody else leave everybody else alone?"
Well, so that's important. That gets
Yeah,
back to one of my chapters about is fluidity
yeah,
real?
hmm
And a lot of gay men, at least, I don't know about lesbians, but a lot of gay men um, don't have any attraction for the opposite sex, and I do.
right.
And I've experienced fluidity where I've gone, up and down the spectrum, and it's not unheard of. It's actually common fluidity. And so, rather than advocating someone's trans choice or someone's gay choice, why not just advocate the person and give them time and space to figure things out? Because those kind of things take decades sometimes to
Right.
figure out for sure.
hmm I think Dave Chappelle once said, "Empathy is not transgender. Empathy is not bisexual. No, empathy is not gay. And empathy is bisexual. It
Okay.
must work both ways." So I think as people start to just shut up and watch and see people figure out themselves, whether it's a gay guy is straight or whether someone wants to be a trans or whether someone's a lesbian or this or that, and there's less um, trying to do this early prevention. Let's shut that stuff down before we go any further. Just let that person make their choice and take their course. And when they get there and when they come back, then the empathy has to work the other way. This person, this it might be new to them because they grew up religious. It might be not natural to them because they've been told their life it's not natural, right? So I think the more one side, and I hate to just take the argument with this false dichotomy of you're just on one side or the other, but in this case, and you know, in the classic approach of this discussion, I'd like to try one side who's intolerant to that has to just let it take its course, and when it takes its course, the other side has to. Yeah. You know, to take that first side, and when that first side says, you got to give me a minute, give them a minute. You know what I'm saying? Give them a minute. Yeah. So, and I'm circling back to what Chappelle said, who's been controversial on sexual issues for the people that don't actually watch him. Empathy is not gay or lesbian or transgender. It's bisexual. Yeah. It must work both ways. Yeah. That's enough about your book. I'm actually on the edit. I'm going to make sure I have all the information they need to know about where to purchase the book and this and that. And of course, the complete title that was so long, I have to look down and read it like a moron.
No, I have to read it too.
When you started writing, because I remember early in your career, you said that you hated reading, you know, which is, I'm here. Last good book you read, I'm like, actually, the last good book I read was Fool's Errands, about the 19-year war in Afghanistan and what we were doing there. It's excellent, and I have the author right there, and I'll give it to you later. It's definitely a good read. So, as far as the why on your chosen path to writing these bestsellers and just being this amazing professor and just good communicator and human being, and I'm looking at your face right now, and it's just like, I feel like the world's a better place, man. This is gonna be a long podcast. Spend the whole day looking at you. I might be a little gay for you. Kelly, I love you. I'm just kidding. All right. So, was there a why on your chosen path to writing, or is it just something where you're like, I'm liking this, and I'm good at it. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah, the answer
is... It's a loaded question, please, but I'm going to give you the floor.
You're right in both cases. So yeah, as I was writing and publishing and getting recognized, I thought, yeah, this is good. I enjoy this. Only when this last book came out did I realize that, wow, this is what I was born to do. This book is why I'm here on the planet. Because I learned so many revolutionary things. And so I guess you can't know until you finally attain what it is. And maybe there's not just one mission for a person in life, but it was kind of interesting to get to a place where, wow, I really feel like everything led up to that.
And that's an important answer for a lot of people's careers, right? Like when I was studying acting, you really cannot go on stage with the intention to be good. Because if you do, you're not going to be good. There was a story that Lauren Bacall told about she did 100 performances. No, it wasn't Lauren. It was somebody else. But I just want to use her as an example. She was an old school actress, like a Sophia, like that type of woman that walks into the room and men know how to behave, right? They don't exist anymore. But she said she did 100 performances, right? And the first 5 performances, there was a particular way she asked for the sugar for her tea, and the audience was laughing, just like some of them even clapped. So she tried to play to that. In the next 90 performances, nothing.
Didn't work.
Nothing. In the last 5 performances, she got the laugh back. And when she was asked what she did, she said, I asked for the sugar and not the laugh. So that's why I was asking you on the why. Because a lot of people, they see this, and sometimes they write with the intention for it to be a good piece, and then then there's the other people, the ones who succeed at it. Their nose is so ingratiated into their work, whether it's really, really good is a net result. You know, and then as you ascend, and as you get an agent, and as you get with the right publishing companies, because I know you were talking about clicks when it comes to that in a previous podcast. There's a good old boys club there. Volleyball. Volleyball in California, there certainly is here, right? So that's why I asked the why. You know what I'm saying? And your path. And somewhere in the beginning of this was, I guess I'm going to rephrase the question. Was it just your nose in the work, and then you didn't know you'd blow up like this?
Yeah, I was just doing what was fun, and actually I felt led because, as I said, the stories would ambush me. I felt like I wasn't writing them; they were just coming to me, and I was scribbling them down.
Yeah.
So,
You said you
and then
write everything down too, man. You're so smart. Do you know how old some people have to be to realize, like, I could just write this down? You
yeah, it takes,
know, man, we should start teaching teenagers that now, so this way they can have a better quality of life. Just start writing stuff down.
yeah.
Um, making a mess, making a message from your mess.
Mhm.
Um, I like that. I like that phrase, and then you mentioned that too. I did a little bit of homework on you, and I just
I did.
started taking some of these things that just, well, anything that made me smile, I wrote down. I don't even. I mean, this might not even be an important episode on the Option Podcast. We might just be two guys here talking. So, uh, um, making a message from your mess. Talk to me a little bit about that. Talk to my. No, I think I get it, but we owe an audience
Sure,
we owe it to the audience for me not to talk this whole
sure.
podcast.
And many people already know I didn't come up with that phrase, but it really
Yeah.
applies to me because relationship-wise, my life was a mess for decades.
Hmm.
Just like you said, a train wreck,
Yeah.
and I wasn't finding what I was looking for. I was looking for a deep connection that lasted, and I was at one point I concluded I will never find that in this life, maybe in the next life.
Yeah. Were you okay with that?
I was resigned, but I don't think I was happy about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, I just feel like all of this was teaching me. I just didn't know it. All the stuff that we go through, all the difficulty and opposition and struggles, they're not pointless. We're learning. We're always learning. You can be lying in bed and learning, not even reading, just existing, you're learning. You can't help but grow and develop.
Yeah. Can you appreciate that a lot of people, and I guess in the world in general, need to understand that? To
Yeah.
understand that sometimes for you to get to be here, you have to be there.
Yep.
It has to be there. In theater school, there were I guess I can narrow it down to two techniques, and I don't know why my phone's humming. Hush. Um, there were two different techniques I want to give you. One is like Stanislavski, and it's like Sanford Meisner, where if you get up and move across the room, you need a reason to,
Okay.
right? And then there's Michael Chekhov, not to be confused with Anton. Michael Chekhov, where it's like you get up, you move across the room, come back. Move across the room, come back. And figuring out the why organically allowed you to perform more organically, where that style of acting allowed the actor to put on a better scene because it felt like they didn't have to struggle for it. And it was very important for stage because you got to do 100 shows, and the people that pay for your ticket want to see the same thing you did yesterday and the day before that and the day before that, as opposed to film. So I appreciated the term making I just got making a message from your mess. It's a learning experience, and the reason why I even brought it up because there's so many people that will see your story and be like, this is so relatable. This applies to me. What did he do about it? Oh, cool. That's why I like your writing, and that's why I like what you're doing right now. You know,
Thank you.
yeah. Or would you call it plotters versus pansters?
Answers. You really did do your homework. Yeah, I'm in the middle. I like to be structured and have organization, but I also write by the seat of my pants.
Yeah, that's good. So you got a nice healthy balance of that.
I think so.
Yeah.
Works for me.
I think, yeah, it definitely works for me. Definitely works for me. But I guess from the business, right, the more people you have involved in what you're trying to do with your mission statement and your projects, right, the more it has to be plotter, right?
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
be,
But I think real inspiration can't be limited that way. You have to let it come however it wants to come.
yeah. Is that why
But yeah.
you're like the major shot caller in all your projects?
Yeah,
He's like,
definitely.
this
I
guy
have a
knows
control
me.
freak.
I'm filing a restraining order. This dude knows me.
Yeah.
Come on, I'm not a lazy guy. I live in California, but I function like a New Yorker, my man. So
Awesome.
chillax, man. We'll be all right. No, that's not me. Yeah, I appreciate the value in you knowing the consequence of your actions or what you decide for yourself and what people decide for you.
Right.
Um, and when you actually think of the consequence or where the blowback happens, it's always you, right? So, I do you agree that generates from your choice?
Yeah, and there's also blowback and consequence for the people around you. So
Ah,
it's
it's
you
true.
have to be a little bit wise,
Right.
careful.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, when I was in the army, I had a great company commander that gave me the autonomy to do my occupational specialty, and then the next commander came along, told me how to do it, and when it went wrong, and they came to him, he's like, "That's not my job, that's his job," and I'm just like, "Ooh, yeah,
Oh, ouch.
I gotta get out of here."
Yeah.
Let me just fulfill my time. I'm a Gulf War vet, so I was a generator mechanic supporting MI, and the one thing I learned from that is never be held responsible for a situation that you're not in charge of. And that's not impossible. I mean, that's not possible to navigate your entire life, but put yourself in
Mhm.
a position as much as you can, um, which is why I brought it up in the first place. I think, can you give me some examples of certain decisions where people disagreed with you, but you saw where consequences were, or is this a off the wall question?
Well, gosh, the biggest one that comes to mind is with this writing this book, because I wasn't careful and methodical about writing this book. I just had to get all this information out on, down in words,
Hmm.
and then worry about cleaning it up and making it make sense. But
Right,
also, I worried about the consequences because I thought a lot of young people would be reading this, people who haven't formed an opinion yet. And
right.
then I didn't want to be telling them what to think, but at the same time, I wanted them to gain from what I've experienced. So that's a really fine line. That is a big responsibility.
It is. It is. And it's so weird because when you take it, you don't know it, and then when you're in it, you're like, oh my god, okay, let me just give me a minute before I actually make my final decision on
Right.
this.
And thank you, by the way, for serving. Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. I'm a vet. Yeah. My dad before me, his dad, tracing all the way back to World War One, every single American war, all the men. My sister, I just mentioned, she's the first woman in our family, and she's like what I would call, and I mean, I don't know if there's a correct term for this. She's kind of a butch lesbian.
Mhm.
So when she's calling me from Afghanistan, yo, this army thing's a trip, Jay. You know what I'm saying? She got like her little dude voice on. So that for just not for bigoted reasons or purposes in my labeling, just descriptive, so you can
Right.
understand what she sounds like and what she looks like. Because I know some people are hypersensitive.
I don't have a problem with the word butch.
No, I mean right. I mean, what else would you call
Right.
it? I remember you were also talking a little bit about censorship, and that was something we were talking
Mm.
about before the podcast started. When you I guess when your book sales happened and when you started becoming more opinionated on some things, um, I'm not going to ask for a particular timeline, though. That's a voluntary thing on your part. At what point did you realize? Because censorship has always kind of been there, but it's been huge uptake the last 2.5 years. Um, at what point did you realize that people that had opinions that were differing from the mainstream were being censored on your personal um, whatever?
Oh, I think I saw it 20 years ago.
Right.
Uh, but it's gotten crazy now. And it's strange because I grew up in San Jose, California, and it was right by Santa Cruz, which is hippie central.
Yeah.
San Francisco, Haight-Ashbury. I mean, those are the most liberal people in Berkeley. I mean, just I was just surrounded by people who stood for free speech.
Right.
And of course, there's censorship on both sides, but the fact that it still exists at all is
Yeah.
is a tragedy because I mean, you think we learn from our past, you
Mm.
know, let people read and say what they want.
Yeah.
Um, the more they read and the more they say that they regret later, the more we learn, all of us.
Yeah. I think it's better off. Uh, I hate to quote you again. Better the fall off from bad censorship. I mean, from bad speech, to let
Yeah,
it fall off than to censor it and have it implode. Right.
yeah,
I thought January 6th was a big example of that. Like if you censor the some of these people, they're not, their opinions are not going away. It's just something that's boiling over that you won't see coming.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Um, and I thought that's me personally. That's when I've noticed it more. I just think it gave the government and it gave other people to say this is what happens when you let people express themselves, and now we have to censor those bad things and this and that. And like my wife, she has less of a problem with censorship, but she has more of a problem with who determines what's the right thing to say and what's not. So in
Right.
essence, she's more on my side than not, because the governing body that decides what's okay to say and what's not is not exactly the poster boys for integrity and honesty and historical honesty, right? So
Yeah.
did I phrase that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you drive people to muzzle themselves or underground, those bad ideas will fester. But if
Mm,
those bad ideas are out in the open and we're discussing them, I think it's easier for people to see where they're right and where they're wrong, where they could improve what they think or believe. If it's
right,
a free marketplace of ideas, that's the best place. I mean, sunlight is the most healthy thing, rather
right,
than hidden and driven under and festering.
right. Educating people who are living under the rock of what free speech is. Free speech is designed to protect you from government persecution, right? And this
Yeah.
is why I've always valued free speech, because of that definition. I've always considered free speech a double-edged sword, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't protect you from other free speech, and that's where my opinion with the cure is. And bad free speech. Bad. The best way to cure bad free speech is good free speech. Is other free speech. You
Yeah.
know, there's dialogue. There's debate. There might be even some emotion, but at the end of the day, less people get hurt. Less people get hurt by letting people say what they want than censoring them. I think more people get hurt by
Absolutely.
censoring, which is weird because the message now is the less you censor, the more people get hurt by someone's words.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, do you think we as a nation are just that stupid? We got plenty of stupid people here, don't get me wrong, but do we allow this crowd of stupid people to say the rest of the country has to be not punished, but like has to behave a certain way because we don't trust those people enough, you know? Or is it because the digital age or the information age has made us more sensitive to it?
Yeah, I could contribute to. I think people are less trusting of each other, and that's sad. And I think part of it is because we don't enjoy 100% free speech. If
Mm-hmm.
we really did, we wouldn't have concerns about what's going on in that person's mind because we'd know.
Right. You went to BYU, right?
Mhm.
Journalism major?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm undergrad.
Was that something that you're like, I'm in college and I got to study something, and then you ended up liking it?
Exactly. I took it because it was a short program. I
Why do
wanted to.
why do you think I studied acting? Oh my God! Salute, my man.
Oh, funny. But I loved it. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I was hooked. I
yeah,
never intended to be a reporter, but I got the writing chops. I had really good instructors. And
yeah.
so,
God bless. BYU's a good school too, man. I know a good men's volleyball team as well. I'm a volleyball head, so you'll always see them in the semis or finals. Pretty much the last 10 years, maybe like eight of the last 10 seasons, they were always in the scene, on the scene.
yeah.
They do really good international recruiting. I have a friend whose cousin's from Puerto Rico, was like their best player, Gabby. And Puerto Ricans usually only known by their first names. My
Yeah.
friend Rafu, and I was like, "What's his last
For
name?" Just
their nickname. Yeah.
never mind. It's like Cher, dude. Or
Yeah.
Madonna. Just say it, Cher. Do you believe in love? Are you a Cher fan? I'm
Sure.
not asking that because you're gay.
Oh yeah, it's fun. Oh yeah, I guess I like Barbara Streisand too, but
Yeah, right.
I like a lot of
Let's
different
come
artists.
on. Let's
So,
let's fill that stereotype, my man. Let's pile on. Put
oh,
some
funny.
salt on that. No, I went to a Cher concert in Madison Square Garden, and her introduction was "Ladies and gentlemen and exotic men." That was her. That's how she started. Yeah, I had the pleasure of seeing her in the garden. That was
I
fun.
remember watching her as a kid on the Sonny and Cher show.
Yeah. Oh my
I'm
God.
that old.
I didn't think she had acting chops until I saw the show with It was a one word title, and it's just
Moonstruck.
not Moonstruck. It was about this kid Rocky Dennis who had like this
Oh
medical
yeah, The
disease.
Mask.
Mask. That's
Yeah.
what it was. Excellent movie, dude.
Excellent.
Excellent movie. And Moonstruck is what? That was her and Nick Cage.
Yeah.
That was her and Nicolas Cage. Cool. How did we even get there, man?
I don't know.
I'm driving us both off the cliff, man. I got to give you the wheel at some point because there are certain things you sent that you really wanted to talk about openly, and I thought we hit right on the head. We hit the nail on the head as far as sexuality and just understanding each other and allowing people to be, to be themselves
And figure themselves out. Yeah.
yeah, and empathy, man. Just wow. So yeah, censorship happened to me when I started going away from volleyball. This is a predominantly volleyball podcast, right?
Right.
And what happened was I was very disturbed when Joe Rogan got in some hot water about talking about COVID, right? And for anyone that watches the podcast, he's not a news outlet. They're just having a conversation. He's not there to bring you the news. He's a podhead comedian, right?
Yeah.
That didn't even, very much like me and maybe a little bit you didn't really know the why. There was just this idea where they could just have fun and have a good time. You never knew it'd be that big.
Yeah.
So the same time Joe got in trouble, Whoopi got in trouble with the whole Nazi thing when she was like, "How is that racial when it's just white people killing white people?" So I made an episode, no guest, called "Free Speech is Not Popular Speech."
Yeah. That's good.
And I defended Joe for obvious reasons because everybody's like, well, false balance is like you're giving this guy equal footing, And I'm like, how does false balance apply when everyone's being censored? How do you even know what false balance is? False balance requires a percentage, but your foundation, other percentage is wrong because they're being censored. How the hell what does it even mean when you're being censored, right? And then Whoopi. The argument I made for her is somewhere out there, and you teach, so you'll appreciate this. Somewhere out there, there's going to be a black kid that raises his hand and says, in Nazi Germany, how did the Nazis know who the Jewish people and the German people were? Now, you're an academic. I'm a kid from Brooklyn. New York is a very Jewish place, so you kind of say that guy's Jewish, that guy's Jewish. So we kind of, you watch communities they function in, the church, and you put two and two together. But for a black kid who only recognizes pigmentation as race, that's a legit question. And because she apologized, no one wants to answer that question. So I just got pissed. So in summation, because you're my guest and I really appreciate you taking this time. And now you realize this isn't an interview, this is a conversation, right? Because there's so many people that leave the podcast is like, I could have had a conversation. But I ran an ad for it on Facebook, right? And it got 23,000 views, but there's a category called through plays. Through plays, educating people. It's people that watch from the first second all the way to the end.
Right.
And it got 66% on through plays. Now, most people, 18%, 10%, 11%, especially a long form podcast, you're happy. Yeah, if you're in the lower 20s, that's a great podcast. This one episode got 66%. So I got 14,000 views out of the 23,000 or something like that. Or maybe it's like 50 something. But man, a day later, my Facebook, my personal account was canceled. All of my business accounts were canceled. YouTube, all of a sudden, only got like 3 views. And it was like Meta and Google, what the hell's going on here? And what they said was you violated community guidelines. And they gave me a link, give me all the community guidelines, but not citing what?
Talking about free speech got your free speech canceled.
Yes. But very much like an ex-girlfriend, when you ask her, what did I do? And she says, you know what you did. I was like, holy sugar, man. I'm in trouble. I don't remember. You can't say you violated community guidelines and can't cite what? Right. There's no way. How do I walk that back? And the episode, by the way, because I was hypersensitive about free speech, because I did this episode a year ago. I had one of those Daily Show windows in the back that had like my sources, CDC, about Joe Rogan, CDC, Whoopi Goldberg. So I had my sources in the background popping up every time I every time I introduced something that was a question of fact.
Wow.
So I covered my bases, and if you can Google search it, you won't find it on YouTube. It's they put it back up because I gave them hell, so it's back on YouTube. But you can't find it. I'd have to send you the link,
Holy
you know.
cow.
So that's when I realized that, and then
Yeah.
I had this amazing viewership gone, and it took my sport, the people loyal to me in my sport, to bring me back. You know why? Because the people in my sport were fanatics, so they didn't wait for the episodes to pop up on their wall. They were actively looking for it every week.
Right.
1,100 maniacs, you know, every
That's
week
awesome.
kept me afloat. So, you know, until all of that blew over. You know,
Yeah.
what do you think about Elon Musk and this whole thing?
Wow. I say more power to him. I
Right.
mean, again, thinking for himself, not caring what either side thinks of him,
Hmm.
just doing his thing. Everybody should be that free.
No doubt. No doubt. I mean, everywhere else, I don't know. Free. I mean, maybe are we spoiled or something? Right? Do they have free speech in England? Do they have it in Australia? Do they have it, you know, in Russia? Freedom after the speech? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Good question.
So when you going to Greece?
Oh, yeah, it's my next destination. I was half an hour away from Greece, and my itinerary got changed.
Come on, tell me. You ain't getting
So,
off that easy. Tell me the story. Come
so I
on.
went
This
there
ain't an
on a business
interview,
trip.
man. This is a conversation. Talk to me.
I used to be a technical recruiter, so I was sent there to recruit in Eastern Europe. I was in Ukraine, Bulgaria, Turkey, Romania, and yeah, when we were down in Bulgaria, I think we were like half an hour from Greece, and I had like a day I could go down there, but then they shipped us to another spot before I could
No.
get down there. So
That
I'll have to go back.
sucks. Like you said, that's like stopping off at Lima en route to Chile. It's like, I
Yeah,
wish I could have went to Machu Picchu. Wish we were stuck here for a day, get back out and then, right? So
yeah,
I
gotta see that
appreciate
too
that.
sometime.
Yeah. So getting back to the whole sexuality thing, do you think one of the bigger obstacles, because I'm driving us back on the cliff, off
Uh,
the cliff, the Mulholland Drive back to the PCH,
all
um,
right.
do you think one of the biggest obstacles is either self honesty or mutual honesty about knowing what people want from the physical relationship? Right?
So yeah,
Let's go
I definitely
ahead.
think people should talk about it. Did you want to make a clarification?
Hmm. No, for example, let's say somebody likes getting head, right, or whatever,
Yeah.
and his girlfriend's not into that. At some point, he might be like, "She's nice enough. I want this relationship." But then, as a relationship happens, these are these are driven by passion, cravings that sometimes get the best of virtue,
Yeah.
and he's eventually going to get it from somewhere else. So, do you think some of these things that break up a relationship are um, lack of candidness or pre or citing as a pretext what you want before just being honest of what you want in a relationship and what you like, and that person knowing what you like versus dismiss, you know what I'm saying, like shutting that conversation, we're not going to have a talk about this or whatever, or is it? So talk to me a little bit about obstacles that
Okay.
get in the way, of relationships that might lead to the physical betrayal.
So I think just about everybody has met a married couple who where one of them wanted kids and the other one didn't. And you're like, how did you get married and not discuss that
Yeah.
before you got married?
Yes.
You know,
Yeah, no
it
doubt.
happens. And I
Hmm.
think, yeah, when we're not meeting our social needs healthfully, then again, we're trying to manage with sex. And if sex is the way we start our relationships, we're not going to know our partner very well.
No.
We're not going to know if we have much in common. Yeah, I mean, everybody likes orgasms, so that's just like that's not something to build a relationship on,
Oh,
right?
no. Good luck with
So,
that. But go ahead. You're right.
so yeah, I don't know if I'm being too blunt, but yeah, honesty and getting to know each other and holding off, trusting your gut. If you feel like you should wait, and not jumping in the sack right away.
Hmm.
Um, but the other thing that I found, because I was a sex addict for so many years, was that honesty and disclosure and communication are the basis for true relating. And I wasn't doing that. And so I went through a 12-step program, you know, Alcoholics Anonymous, they have them for sex addicts. And the 12 steps, one of them is honesty and
Mm.
disclosure. And I had to speak about everything I'd done, the things that I was thinking, the things that were going on inside of me, things that I never wanted anybody to know. I had to speak them out loud in front of other people. And that changed my life. Not only did it help me get out of the addiction, but it was the basis for establishing true relating, something I had never succeeded in before. It was an epiphany. It was life-changing.
Yeah, and look at where you are now, right?
Yeah.
And I'm glad we're having this conversation because, on a general level, the conflicting forces of being driven by passion versus being driven by virtue is a real thing. Is a
Yep.
real thing, and it shapes relationships. It ruins relationships. It makes some people be self-destructive, self-implosive.
Mm.
Your example being a sex addict is an extreme example, but the extreme example is exactly what we need to bring everything back to like you said, having these levels of self-honesty and these conversations of self-honesty like mammals. Like
Yeah.
mammals, people, right? Walk with two legs and drink water. you know,
Yeah.
like the song, "Me and You, Baby, We Ain't Nothing But Mammals." So let's do it like we do it on Discovery Channel. I had a guy on my podcast called his name was Billy Presidio. He's a stand-up comedian, but he's also the founder of the Man Whore podcast.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, that got me in hot water with my volleyball clubs. I'm like, teens ain't supposed to be listening to that. But yeah, they learned the hard way about me. But this guy basically, we get through this conversation, and I'm a half hour in, and I don't want to talk about, just I was hesitant to just jump right in, and then 30 minutes in, he's like, "This is the longest we've gone without talking about effing I've ever gone." And I was just like, and then I was like, okay, we broke the plane. But the question that actually made us, and you got to listen to this podcast, the question that made the conversation interesting, I said, what would you say to the people who don't understand your lifestyle, that aren't down with that? And he's like, well, my answer to that is they don't need to. He says, they're doing their thing, I'm doing my thing. That's the problem. And I said, that's not what I'm talking about. And you're going to love this. Because I'm talking so much, I gotta damn sure get somewhere with this. I said there's two kinds of people that say they don't understand.
Okay.
They look at you and they say, "Carl, I don't get it. I don't want to get it. Yeah, go away, shoot
Right.
fly." And then there's the other kind that says, "Carl, I don't understand. Help me understand. I want to understand."
Mm.
And when I told him, "God, dude, I'm the latter. Let's go." And from that point on, from like 43 minutes all the way to an hour and 48, we
Wow.
talked about. I'm trying not to curse on my podcast, just effing on this galactic astronomical level. That place, that there's a place where men and women get to meet and talk, but there's that place under that place
Mm.
that's deep. It's dark and it's old as the stars. It's been there since
Yeah.
the existence of humanity. And that was the place I wanted to be in. And man, did I get in trouble with some of my, because at that time I was a club coach for
Okay.
beach. And they tried to give me this speech about role models. And I'm like, all right, go find another role model. I'm a coach. I'm not a saint, you know? So what do you think your role is? And helping people get there and
I see.
and understanding. Do you even have a role?
Yeah, I do. I feel like I exist to help people see options they maybe didn't look at before or didn't even know existed.
Right.
Because for me, much of my life was, gosh, am I going to marry a woman and be in the closet all my life, or am I going to have a gay partner? And those were the only two things I could think of as far as relating to human beings, which is
Mhm.
pitiful.
Yeah. It's pitiful. I had to talk about sex on like this groups, these crazy parties, these multiple partner things, just to get to the point. Just to get to the point. So I had to go all the way there, just for people to get to the point of what we want in life, and levels of self-honesty and what we crave. And like I said, the conflicting forces of driven by virtue being driven by passion. I had to go there. The society made me go there so we can bring it here.
And we really are conditioned to
Mhm.
see black, white, left, right, up, down. And usually there's so many more options
No,
for any decision we have to make.
some miserable people out there, dude. Right? Jeez. We're humans. I mean, it's look. We're not like animals. I'm not like a shark, right? Imagine like having to attack things with your face to live, right?
Yeah.
This is not a sucky life we have. Being a human, and in
Of
America
course.
is a good life to have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, picture being like a wolf or a coyote or something. In order to live, you got to attack things.
With
You
your
got to attack
face.
things with your face.
Never
you
thought
know,
of that.
so well, that's a hell of a relationship if the only way to function is to attack things with your face.
Wow, you have quite the mind where you can go there and figure stuff like that out.
Yeah, can you see why I need you to talk more? How did we even start this conversation? Oh man, so you also majored in political science. Was that your master's?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool, man. I mean, dude, I'm sure you got a lot to say about what the hell's been going on in the last 3 years. I hate social issues. Being I'm highly emotional about them. I think they're fun to discuss, but I think because people make such an elevated deal about it, it makes me not like Sam Harris once said this. He says, "You are incapable of solving real problems because you're hysterical about imaginary ones." you know, like
Profound.
yeah, like arguments about having gay flags in schools, arguments about gender, whatever, identity, whatever,
Mm.
and this and that. I'll give you my own personal opinion.
Okay.
As a parent, I equate somebody, my kid, being at a certain age where they make their own decisions.
Mhm.
And there's certain things you just got to do what I say do. The old school virtue because I said so is time tested. It's because I said so for the people listening at home. That's another way of saying I don't know right now. I don't know.
Well, no,
you
it's also
know?
because you're a dad and you know there's cars in the
Yeah.
street and you're gonna yank them out of the street,
Yes.
physically,
Hmm.
take away their freedom completely,
Right. But
yank
I
their hand away from the hot stove.
but I'm shaping my question to you, and I desperately need you to disagree if you think I'm wrong. I think because kids, from a toddler to a child to a teenager to a young adult to a full adult, are in the middle of psychological growth. They're not just
Yeah.
growing long bones and crying that their leg hurts because they're growing long legs, right? And my question to you is, do we allow or do we trust people at this young age to make these decisions? I'm talking about everything. I'm talking about getting a
Sure.
sex change, all right? Because this is where we're kind of going with this.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about joining the military. I'm talking about some 14-year-old kid says he wants to be an accountant. No, you don't. You don't go your freshman year, the first semester, you're gonna find out you don't want to be an accountant. All right. So
Yeah.
these are just general things that some would consider mundane. Why? So we don't allow our kids to do mundane things. How the hell do we even allow our kids to do serious things like that? Disagree with me, push back, agree. The
No,
floor
I
is
don't
yours.
disagree with you.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, at different stages, you got to allow them more autonomy. Give
Mm,
them an allowance, let them work with money, let them control that money and do what they want, waste it, figure
mm,
out how money gets lost so that they'll take better care of it later. And same thing with like smoking and alcohol. It's like if you're going to do sex change procedure, but you don't let them have alcohol, it's like, what are you thinking?
can't let them walk
Again,
it off with some vodka.
I
Sorry.
mean, yeah, like I just read that the adult male brains don't completely develop till you're like 25, 26, 27. It's not fully developed to that late. And we're voting at 21 and drinking at 21. Maybe we're voting at 18.
Jesus. Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, you have to be a parent because you've been around the block and your child hasn't.
Yeah.
So, and it goes back to fluidity. I mean, I had a buddy who thought he was gay, came out to his parents as gay as a young adult. Months later, he's like, you know what? I am actually asexual. So you got to give people space to figure stuff out. And again, like I said, sometimes it takes decades. So
Right.
why would you go and do a procedure or put a philosophy in their head that is going to be very painful to change later? Let them work it out.
Yeah. Let 'em- I think I don't know. Like you said, whatever you're feeling at the time is real, and what you do about it is a choice, right?
Yeah.
Like if I'm a kleptomaniac, right? Um, it doesn't mean I don't have any choice but to steal. It just makes my choice to steal or not a lot harder than everybody else. It says you struggle with it. And I don't mean to use kleptomania because that's actually stealing. That's not something you want to do. So I don't mean to compare that to being gay or being straight or thinking you identify as being a man or a woman or this or that. So,
Right.
um, but I do compare it in the sense that the choice you make, the actual action,
Yeah.
has consequences, good or bad.
Yeah.
You know, like I just told you in the beginning of the podcast, I had a friend who did the transformation, and I've never seen this. This person was miserable to be around. As a volleyball player, right? And it's since this just high and smiling and just and I've been doing this for a long time. I know when someone's really happy, and I know when someone's just like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Your eyes right now, you're a happy dude right now. You're in a good way. Whatever it took for you to get here, there, you're a happy dude. I love talking to you, and I can't shut up right now. But um, yeah. So that was him. But the difference was that was a full grown person,
Yeah.
like you said, and consistent with fully developed, or what we perceive to be fully developed psychology, human psychology, right? This the process, right? Toddler, child, teen, young adult, adult. You gotta let people not be boys interrupted or girls interrupted.
Right.
Yeah.
And give them, different levels of choice as they get older. Not just when you're 18, suddenly you have choices. No,
Yeah.
you got to start young and let them make choices and have consequences.
Right. Yeah. No doubt. So you teach journalism. You teach two different schools. One is you teach journalism. What's the other one?
I used to teach journalism at Utah Valley University, and now I
Okay.
teach digital media at Mountain Land Technical College.
Nice.
So, yeah,
Yeah. You like being in Utah?
I miss the beach.
There
I
you go.
really do.
My
We just got
man.
like 17 inches of snow here.
I, yeah. I was just in Mammoth too, and it was, yeah, snow was. When they
Crazy.
move the snow out of the way, it's like these 8 foot things that you're like, yeah, I'm in it right now. I'm deep in it. I miss the concrete jungle. I'm a New Yorker by nature.
Yeah.
Um, and something I wanted to talk about that you're gonna might help some people with is and I wrote it down. It's basically something to do with block scheduling. Take
Mhm.
a time of day that you say I have to do this
Oh, yeah.
to be productive, right? And the reason why I brought this up because we were talking about how much we miss the beach, but we
Yeah.
know what we don't miss about the beach. Being this South Bay life makes you the biggest procrastinator. You're like, oh, I got this project. I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna do this. And you get to the beach, I'll do it in an hour. Then you have lunch with your friends, and a whole day went by and you didn't do anything. This place, I call it California drunken stupor. It's like it's La La Land.
Well, aside
It
from
is.
the
It is
drunken, I
true.
am
It is.
envious.
Yeah. But I mean, I didn't mean literally drunk. But I mean, like you feel like you're in this bliss where you're
Mm,
not. I mean, 2 days went by and you're like, I was supposed to do that 2 days ago. So
yeah.
talk to my audience, full of procrastinators,
Okay.
about the importance of something I call block scheduling.
Yeah.
Maybe interpret that for some of my people.
Sure. Sure. Well, 'cause you want to be productive. You don't want to be a complete slob until you die. You want
No.
to accomplish something in your life. And I found the way to do that is to not say, I have to sit and write for 3 hours every day. I don't do that.
All
But I
right.
do say, I have to sit in this chair and write at the same time every day, even if
Mm,
it's just 5, 10 minutes.
right.
And typically it'll be more if I get my butt in the chair at the same time every day. I think that's the really critical thing. And over time, you got a book done.
Yeah, man. Wow. So, if you instinctively or impulsively, what's your favorite book? Like, if I asked you that, what's the first book that came to your mind right now?
Okay, so
It's
nonfiction,
not going to be your favorite one. What's the first one that came to your mind?
John Adams.
Yeah.
It's a nonfiction. It's biography by David McCullough.
Talk to me
Amazing.
about John Adams. I know this I won't say unnatural obsession with John Adams, but I know he's an intriguing person for you to read about and study and this and that. So again, I did my homework.
Yeah, you
Um,
did. So
and yeah, look, see all this? This is called paralysis to analysis, right? When you
Wow.
have so much, you can't ask anything. And as a volleyball coach, I teach my kids in things of 3. Like on serve, receive, or passing, you could teach them 11 things, but if you teach them 11 things, they're not going to do any of those things.
Right.
Paralysis to analysis, and this is what I'm suffering right now. Talk to me a little bit about John Adams, where your intrigue comes from, and some things about the guy.
So 2 historical characters that I love, but I probably wouldn't die to meet because they were irritating, are John Adams and Winston Churchill. And they both had similar things that they did in their lives. They were both kind of annoying to the people around them. They were kind of like a thorn in people's sides, but they were that thorn that society needed at the right time. Churchill to save Europe before America even got into the war, and John Adams to save America from the tyranny that was England at the time. And, he was just this irritating guy that got people to look and see the need to change stuff. And he had great ideas. And they both, I think, were superheroes.
I think you're one of the people that noticed, because usually the most irritating people, history is usually more kinder to them. You're the person that still concedes, no, he's still an irritating person. Right? You look at everybody that's had some success in their life that are remembered long after their death. 9 out of 10 of them are irritating as hell. And we don't remember that they were. And the thing that intrigued me about your intrigue with Adams is that you still retain the historical fact that this dude was a pain in the ass.
Well, yeah, McCullough was a great biographer, and he laid it all out. He wasn't pulling punches.
No.
Even Jefferson was complaining about John Adams, working with John Adams.
He's like,
They ended up great friends, but for years they were irritating to each other.
Yeah, like James Brown, another guy. You couldn't leave the studio until you got it right. Steve Jobs, right? Think about his reputation or whatever. Think of Winston Churchill, like you were talking about. Very, very. Was that the King's Speech? Was that about him?
Same era, yeah.
Colin Firth or whatever.
Yeah, he was in that movie. He was one of the characters.
And well documented about how much of a pain in the butt he was. But
abrasive.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that those kind of people are the ones we remember.
Yeah.
Christian Bale, I'm sure he's reputably one of the more difficult actors to work with. We're going to remember him, right?
Yeah.
The only one we won't remember is Amy Klobuchar. She's throwing shoes and phones at people, and she's forgetful. Maybe it doesn't work with women. Maybe it only works with guys. I don't know. Oh, so you never have writer's block? Does that come from just writing a lot? The more you write, the more it becomes impulsive behavior.
Okay, so this may be the most controversial question you ask me, believe it or not, because
I'm failing this entire podcast.
Yeah, the sexuality stuff is nothing compared to this question. Because people, when they find out I'm a writer, they'll often say, "Oh, and you've written a lot of kids' books. I've always wanted to write a kids' book." And I'll say, "Really? Tell me your idea." And many times they'll say, "Oh, I don't have one."
Right.
And inside I'm thinking, "You're not a writer," because I get attacked by ideas. I have file folders full of ideas that I'll never get to because I just have too many.
Yeah. What do you mean? As far as ideas are concerned, you have an idea about self-help, right? I remember you mentioning self-help, reflecting on personal experience. So I'll just put it in my own words. You basically believe self-help books and reflecting on personal experience are kissing cousins.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the why on that.
So, again, like I said, you can't help but learn. I think a lot of us can't help but communicate and share, which is great. That's what you do for a living. I mean, sharing what you learn, learning from the people you're sharing with.
Right.
That's bliss for me. I love that. Even if I don't agree at all with the person who's sharing, I love to learn from people.
Well, it's an awkward question for me to ask, right? Why are they kissing cousins? Because it's awkward for me because I can't think of an instance of a self-help book where someone did not reflect on their experience.
Right.
Not a good one, not one that's, sold more than 2 copies. I worked for a guy, Dr. Isidore Rosenfeld. He's one of these guys who's like the doctor of the stars. I was with him for 17 years in a cardiology practice.
Wow.
He's one of those guys that was already rich and he's just making the world a better place. He didn't do it for pharmaceuticals. Had his own show on Fox called House Calls. He was. You ever seen A Beautiful Mind?
I think. Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
love that.
he was one of the elders that placed the pen down at the end. He was himself, Dr. Rosenfeld, because he knew Dr.
Oh
Nash.
wow.
You ever seen Man on the Moon? He knew Andy Kaufman, so he was in the movie as himself.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And as fate would have it, the directors were our patients. Like Ron Howard was our patient, and Milos Forman was our patient. So, but he was. I forgot where I was going, but he wrote a book called Doctor, What Should I Eat?
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna get into your diet in a minute. Like I said, I did my homework. He's like, really? We gotta. We just drove back off the cliff. We just drove right. We're having a normal conversation now. But I actually weighed 265 before I read that book. I got out of the army and I blew up like a balloon, right? And I noticed a lot of the foods that I were eating that I wanted to cut out weren't the problem, you know? And I read certain things that are like good as fat burners, you know, the myth about dark chocolate being aphrodisiacs.
Right.
And I lost 65 pounds. Like right now I'm like 205, but so that's my net loss, but I got as high as low as 186. So I was 265, got as low as 186, decided that was too light. And here I am just looking like a normal person.
And it wasn't by giving up your favorite foods, it was eating differently?
Yeah. Well, I gave up Haagen-Dazs. That was the only thing.
Okay.
Haagen-Dazs, I was eating an entire pint like every night.
Wow.
Which not only like if we can have a conversation about blood sugar, and that's where I think I'm almost as much of an expert. And the glycemic chart and stuff like that, and foods that are high and foods that are low.
Right.
But it wasn't just that. And the Haagen-Dazs was a neurological addiction.
Whoa.
You know, like I lived in Harlem, right? So what I would do is like, if it's not in the house, I'm not going to eat it. Boom. Case closed, right? So what happens, 10 o'clock happens, 10:30, 11 o'clock happens. I'm watching a movie or maybe I'm doing homework or whatever. 11:30 happens and it's calling me like a thief, like crack cocaine or something.
Right.
And I go out and I buy a pint, right? And I buy a second pint in case I want to get stupid the next night, you know, and have to go. So I end up buying two instead of one because I think I'm gonna have the same problem the next night. And yeah, look, I'm like 18 years cured. It's like your AA meeting for like sex addicts. That was
Yeah.
me. That was me with Haagen-Dazs.
Wow.
But everyone thought about pizza being a bad food. But if you look at the water and the way New Yorkers prepare their pizza, a lot of people lose weight eating pizza.
Good.
Yeah. I also noticed that toasting your carbohydrates is a better carbohydrate breakdown for athletes. You toast all your bread. Anything that says a whole wheat, 100% whole wheat instead of wheat was actually more beneficial as far as white flour and not white flour is concerned. I know you don't eat carbs at all.
Yeah, not by choice.
Right.
It was forced on me.
No. Because I brought it up, you got to tell everybody. Go ahead.
No, this is the depressing part of your podcast. You may want to cut this out.
No, everybody's going to be like, yo, he's skinny. I'm going to do that.
No, you don't want to do that. I went to South America. I was an LDS missionary for 2 years. Got a bug, came home. No one has ever been able to figure out what it is. The last doctor I spoke to said, there's so many microbes on the planet. We can't possibly know what they all are and what they do. He said I was the expert.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, yeah, carbs make me sick, like to the point of writhing on the floor in agony. So I don't eat carbs.
So you're ketoing, right?
Yeah, not because I wanted to lose weight or be healthy. It's just because carbs will make me miserable. I mean, major pain.
Yeah. You know what makes me miserable now? Anything cooked in vegetable oil or corn oil. Since I started making everything in olive oil, I started going to restaurants less, except the expensive ones, because I know they're gonna, you know, like if I go to a steakhouse, I know, you know, what kind of butter, if they're gonna have butter, if it's an olive oil, this or that. So, I'm with you. Yeah, I actually tried a carnivore diet for a month.
Okay.
And I lost like 11 pounds. My energy shot through the roof.
Yeah, I was an animal lover who didn't want to eat meat, but that's what I live on.
Yeah, but then and you also realize more animals die making vegetables than they do factory farming.
Oh,
so
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And all that.
Yeah, because of what do you call it? Monocrop agriculture.
Mm.
It's unnatural to like grow one thing in a big area of space, and to try to keep animals away from that. You're going to poison the animals. You're also going to lose a lot of natural nutrients of what that vegetable or corn, or if you're a corn person, I'm not. So I've had extensive guests on this podcast that helped me. There's a guy named Dr. Bart Kay.
Mm-hmm.
He has 4 advanced medical degrees in exercise physiology, cardiology, this and that, but he's a leader of the meat militia. So he's one of these meat only guys. He's one of the insane guys that made like a lot. I don't fully prescribe to it, but it made 100% sense. Everything he said as far as what you get out of red meat or salmon and this and that. Like salmon is a great source of omega-3, right?
Oh, yeah.
Steak, of course, is tons of nutrients, right?
Tons.
But he was also candid about what you might be missing, like vitamin C. We as human beings used to be able to reproduce our own vitamin C. And a lot of people don't know that. But we stopped doing that. We became codependent on it, and that person had kids and they had kids, and now it's gone. Or, I don't know the anthropological science behind it, but I'm just trying to generalize. But we used to be able to do that. So he was making a point. There's a lot of things that we self-reproduce, that in addition to the steak or whatever. And dude, I lost 11 pounds, and I was like, just, yeah.
Jason, if I could, I'd be eating Haagen-Dazs and pizza every day.
Are you saying we're jealous of each other's lifestyles?
I guess.
Is that what you're saying?
No, it's funny though, because we have a lot in common. I'm an actor too. I was an actor when I was a youth, and
yeah,
I love volleyball. I'm not as diehard about as you are, but
yeah,
so interesting. You're a real Renaissance man.
Dude, yeah, you become old enough, right? You start to, Let me tell you something. Before I met my wife, right? I'm 52 right now, but when I met my wife, I went on a date with this girl, and every time she introduced something, I talked about my experience, right? She's like, oh, the military, that's why I'm a vet, and this and that. And she's like, oh, what do you think of this actor? I'm like, well, I studied acting and this and that. And she's like, oh, what do you think about these drugs? And I'm like, I had a boss I didn't like, wasn't big on drugs, or big pharma and this and that. And we talked about race, and I'm like, well, my mom's black, my dad's white. And like a half hour into this conversation, she's like, even if you're lying about everything you said, it's an interesting story.
It's way interesting. Yeah, you got to write your memoir.
Well, I'm going to write a memoirs just on the doctor's office. The 17. I have a chapter for every story. I've seen Sophia Loren's breast, or Bill Clinton. He was doing a broadcast, and he's like, I'm on TV right now. I don't care if it's the president of the United States, and they're like, it is the president of the United States. So there are tons of stories behind this amazing human being who was a father figure to me. But hey, let's talk about acting, since I'm all over the place. See how you get views, man? You got to be all over the place.
Sure. I just mostly did like high school plays and a little bit of community theater, but Shakespeare, I didn't understand it when I was reading it in high school, but once I saw it live, I was hooked.
No doubt. Isn't it amazing how you hate it, and you're maybe not hate it, but you fear it. There's like this, when you don't understand it, you're fearing it. And typically you start to hate, right? As humans, some of us tend to hate what we're afraid of. So it's like, I hate Shakespeare. And the fact of the matter is, you don't hate it. You're just scared. Not you, but and now I love it.
Yeah. And I say those first actors I saw at Shakespeare in the Park were like interpreters for me. They made me understand it just with their tone and inflection. I knew exactly what they were talking about.
Seasoned actors, though. Right? Yeah. You got to get an old school Shakespeare actor out there. Yeah. Someone that helps you, but at the same time doesn't do it in the condescending fashion like you're an a-hole, right? Like, you don't see some young guy, or you'll see the young guys out there, the rascal hath removed my horse and tied him, I know not where. No, you don't need, right? We're not idiots, right? Right. Or you can go the old school, like, if I move but 4 foot by the squire, further a foot, I shall break my wind. A plague upon it when thieves cannot be true to one another.
I know, you think it's all proper because of the Old English, but they're talking about farting.
It is. Yes. Right? That's what it was. And everyone, but the way an old school person conveyed that, they get it. You don't have to say, I shall break my wind and then go, right? And, like the audience, even for Shakespeare, the audience is one step ahead of you.
Yeah.
Even for Shakespeare. That includes Shakespeare, as hard as that is for some people to believe, And I hated it until my senior year, because your senior year, you have to take it. So the BFA program is 2 years contemporary, right? Mm-hmm. And the third year is Ibsen, Chekhov, comedy of manners, stuff like that. And the entire fourth year is Shakespeare. So, and I'd switched out of the BFA to BA, because you were allowed to audition and do work during the academic year. The BFA, you can't.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I did BA in theater performance. I switched out because I was getting real work. I was in a show called Effing A, written by Susan Laurie Parks at the Public Theater. I was a bounty hunter. Yeah, and the director let me use my military experience to like train the other bounty hunters. So it was quite the ride. So give me one of your favorite plays you're in.
Oh, I did.
Did you like musicals or just straight plays?
I did Sound of Music. I was the captain.
Yes, Captain. Go on. Go ahead.
So yeah, I was good at being stern. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was great. We really bonded as a cast. It was great. Had a lot of fun.
Dude,
a lot of pranks.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Not terribly professional, because we did a lot of backstage pranks, some on-stage pranks.
You behaved like 17-year-olds. I mean, right? You were behaving as fate would have it, right? You happened to be in your teens when you were doing that. So, yeah. But that's what I felt like in college. I felt like I was 13 years late for my prom. It was, I was a returning adult student. I was 33 years old. Uh-huh. And Marymount doesn't recruit returning adult students. They just don't. But I auditioned. And if I knew how serious it was, I probably wouldn't have done well in my audition. If you get what I'm saying, right? Like sometimes going in unassuming, like I didn't know that they were the second ranked program in the country at the time.
Wow.
I just went in there and found out later. And I was just like, thank the Lord. Right?
Good for you, man.
Yeah. But isn't that liberating though? Like being unassuming. I know us guys who do things to intellectually tickle ourselves, we don't like being not knowing, but do you agree that there's something liberating about not knowing some things?
Absolutely. Yeah, because I guess we would be intimidated into doing nothing if we knew everything.
Yeah. Give me an example. How far back you got to go?
Like yesterday.
Oh, shoot. Go ahead.
So I teach the Adobe Creative Suite as part of my class. My class is digital media. So
right.
I can't possibly know everything about that program. And so students will ask me questions, and sometimes I'm like, I don't know. I'll have to go look it up. Mm-hmm. Plus the programs change so often. So I look stupid almost regularly.
Hey, look, it's your right? We were talking about our rights, right? Ignorance is not only bliss, it's constitutional, people.
Yeah.
I'd like to do a lightning round, like a 60-second lightning round. But before we do that, I wanted to know if there was anything specifically about the book, because I remember you mentioned it before the podcast. Is there anything else you wanted to get out there? And because I was very careful about asking too many questions that would just give them so much information. It's like, I don't need to buy the book. I'm just listening to Jason's podcast, Was there anything you wanted to get out about the book, and just that you thought would be helpful or productive or useful or just fun to read?
I may have touched on the biggest thing, and that is, and this applies to gay or straight, and that is, I believe that we have social needs plural, and we should never look for one person to meet all our needs. And it's funny because a lot of straight guys get this and a lot of gay guys don't, that men are wired to love men deeply, and women are wired to love women intensely, and it has nothing to do with sexuality.
All right. And all this time we thought it was wired the other way around. I mean, we are. Attraction. I always tell my friends, because they're like, why are you looking at that girl if you're married? And I'm like, I'm married, but I'm not blind.
Right.
So, what? Or I had some of my male friends, I grew up in Brooklyn, where it's more of a macho, survival of the fittest place. And on Flatbush Avenue, it's like, I'm like, wow, that dude's handsome. And it's like, I wouldn't know if he's handsome. He's a guy. And I'm just like, you're stupid. You're stupid. You're not blind. You know what's good looking and what's not, but there's always this, not phobia, Because phobia in the classic sense of the word is fear, which you don't understand. They're not scared. They're just a-holes, right? I have a T-shirt about that says that. You know,
That's
you're not,
good.
yeah, you're not phobic. You're not scared to be gay people. You're just an a-hole. So, you just don't, you're just being stupid. So, but
Yeah,
that's something even in my youth I've always noticed. I've noticed
sure.
good-looking men and women, and I think that derives from. And I want you to finish before I go to the lightning rounds. Off of what I'm saying, that derives from just being socially mature, the
Mm.
ability to recognize something's good-looking, but you got your own.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And I think I said this too
let's
already,
go
but
further than that. Take it.
God gave us social needs.
Yeah,
And, you've heard pray the gay away, that thing that they mock Christians with.
yeah.
Yeah, God's not going to take away a need for people because it's legitimate. And he created us to meet our needs with each other socially.
And also, education's important, right? The ability to convey this, where people aren't scared that you're trying to shove this down their throat, right?
Mhm.
Tulsi, former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, her
Yeah.
father was into inversion therapy,
Yeah.
converting
Or
gay people. Yeah, conversion therapy. Not
conversion therapy.
no,
Yeah.
no. Inversion therapy is like you're poor but embrace it. It's, you're not in Libya right now. Embrace your poorness. In the meantime, that guy,
Okay.
and from the guy who has a private jet, embrace your poorness. Being told about the environment. Take the train from a guy who flies
Yeah.
a private jet. Give me a break. Go ahead.
Here's something else controversial, though. I went through some conversion therapy, not because I was deluded into thinking that I could become straight, but because being bi, I had to make a choice. Like, do I
Yeah,
want to spend the rest of my life with a woman or a man? And so I gained a lot from that kind of stuff. It wasn't that it was going to change me from gay to
yeah,
straight, but it was helping me embrace manliness, my brothers
right.
as men.
Well,
So
bisexuality is the social savior
yeah,
of people saying of you falling under these false dichotomies.
yeah,
Bisexual is this. I'm going to say that again because I just came up with that. Bisexuality is the social savior,
yeah.
where people can actually come and actually have conversations about this, and whether it's your thing or not. Like, I'm a straight boy, that's not my thing. But let me. I'm not trying. I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh, I'm not prejudiced against black people. I have a black friend. No, I'm just saying that appreciation, empathy works both ways, and I think we collectively can just be better people by that.
Yeah. I mean, I do know guys that are 100% gay, and
Right,
that's real.
and that's their
So
thing. Yeah,
so is being somewhere on the spectrum.
right. And that's
We
their
learn
jam.
that from each other.
That's their jam. Yeah, but Gabbert grew up anti-gay because of that. That's her parents, and she didn't realize she didn't change her stance until she served in the military. She
Okay.
was in the Iraq War, and there were a lot of people who were gay, and she just had conversations and understood. And when she ran for congressperson, she was given like 100% rating by the Human Rights Campaign until of course you quit the DNC and endorse Bernie Sanders over Hillary. Then all of a
Okay.
sudden your past comes up, and
Yeah.
you know how politics works. They take your
Yep.
worst moment and they forget all these good things and say that's who you're about. Now, is she a weirdo? Yes, but I think people need to understand the what before they start swinging blindly at people, and I'm very glad I have you on the podcast because it just makes, and I'm sorry I talked more than you did. This is at some point just come on again, maybe over the summer, and I'll be a little bit more prepared about
No,
what your,
this is great.
next
You're plenty
evolution is.
prepared.
Huh? Yeah. But let's do lightning rounds. Where
Okay.
is it? It's over here. All right, we got 60 seconds. Let me put my clock up. There it is. Okay, and let's start. Get my horn. Okay, favorite comedian?
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan, nice. Last good book you read?
I'm still reading it. Early colonialism. It's about the American colonies.
Marvel or DC?
Oh, I'm torn. I like them both, but Marvel does a better job producing it.
Pool or the beach?
The beach.
Say it with me. Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter?
Lord of the Rings.
Favorite sport to spectate?
Hockey.
Okay. Favorite
Vol-
action?
Volleyball's my favorite one to
Yeah.
play.
Well, mine is MMA away from volleyball. So
Okay.
yeah. Favorite action film star growing up?
Probably Stallone.
Nice. Will Joe Biden make it to 2024?
I think he's going to run.
Okay, got it. Because I asked my Alaska's that. She says and she has that Ukraine accent. She says, "You mean in terms of being alive?" I say yes, but as far as running is concerned, I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
So let's give our audience an IG handle or a website or something where people want to know a little bit more about you and the work you're doing and some of your recent projects. Look, what you've done in the past that brings you to this variance is interesting alone, but yeah, let's give the people some information before we get out of here.
Sure. I think the easiest way to find me is to just Google Karl Beckstrand, Karl with a K. But my website is premiobooks.com. I'm on Amazon, Target, Walmart.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So Karl might love you guys, but me, I don't love you guys. In fact, I can't stand any of you. So we're out of here. All right. So for all of you at home, for all of you on your iPads, for all of you on your desktop, who runs the world? Old school, baby. Old school. For my man, Karl Beckstrand. He is right here. I'm Jason DeBeas. I am right here. This is episode 167 of the Option Podcast. Stay with me. I'm just going to run my music and we are out of here. We're out. Come check out the Option Podcast on optionvb.com. It's also available on iTunes and Spotify and on YouTube under the NY Varsity Sports handle. You're going to love what you hear.